Val asked me to do a video for you all and talk about some basics of diet, nutrition, that sort of thing. And one of the things I want to talk to you about, because I think women tend to be more susceptible to this than men, is crash dieting, and why crash diets don't work, at least in the long term. Now, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, but I just want to paint a picture for you. When I do speeches and seminars, and I talk about weight loss, I always talk about, I say, how many of you all do you think that we have a weight loss problem in this society? And everybody raises their hand. And then I say, you're wrong. Millions of people lose weight every year. Absolutely. People lose weight every year. The problem is that they cannot keep it off. The research data shows that of people who lose weight, 80% will have gained it back within a year. And of that 80%, approximately 1/3 to 2/3 actually put on more weight than they lost. Okay? So let's say somebody was 180 pounds, they lost 30 pounds, got down to 150. There is almost a 50% or more chance that they will end up above 180 when it's all said and done. Okay? In fact, the number of times you try to diet during your life is directly proportional to the amount of fat you gain during your life. Let me say that again. The amount of times you try to diet during your life is directly proportional to the amount of fat you gain during your life. Now that's on average, and I'm not saying dieting makes you fat. But the way that most people diet sets you up for enormous rebound and fat regain. Okay? The focus should not be on how much fat can we lose. The focus should be on how do we lose fat and maintain that fat loss. Okay? Many people, in their pursuit of the elusive six-pack, resort to crash diets because they don't care, they'll do whatever it takes. That's great, but I promise you, you don't have infinite willpower. I promise you that you don't. No one does. Okay? Any type of program which basically assumes infinite willpower is doomed to fail. Why? Because you don't get to pick where your willpower comes from. My friend, soon-to-be Dr. Corey Probst, talks about our psychology and says that it's not like you have willpower for your job and willpower for the gym and willpower for your marriage and willpower for your kids. All of it comes from the same place. Okay? So if your diet and training program require enormous amounts of willpower, what is going to happen? As soon as something goes wrong, you have problems in your marriage, problem at work, stress at home, you are going to fall off the wagon. So we need to revisit the way we think about diet and think about what is the way we can progress on the least amount of willpower possible. Because that is going to be the type of program that we're going to be most able to incorporate into our lifestyle and maintain fat loss. Okay? If you look at virtually all papers out there regarding long-term fat loss, they all say that essentially, in fact there was just a review that came out that the crux of the review essentially said that whatever diet you can stick to is the one you should be on. Whatever diet you can stick to is the one you should be on. Now why did they say that? Because regardless of what diets may cause a little bit superior fat loss, if it is not a maintainable thing, you will rebound. You are going to rebound. You know this. Those of you who have dieted throughout the course of your life know this. You went on the keto diet, you rebounded. You went on the paleo diet, you rebounded. You went on an 800 kilocalorie diet, you rebounded. Get off the merry-go-round. Get on something sustainable. That also means not crash dieting. The research data shows the slower you lose it, the more likely you are to keep it off. Okay? What happens when you crash diet? When you crash diet, your body, it essentially triggers a survival response that your body senses low calories and starts immediately making adaptations to lower your metabolic rate, to upregulate several systems that essentially will enhance fat storage whenever you do come across food. So what's the way normal people diet? Most people diet. They go very low calorie on a crash diet until they essentially go off the deep end. Okay? Either a binge or a holiday comes up or a vacation comes up, and what happens? You come from that and you're 10, 15 pounds heavier. And all of it's fat gain. Don't tell me it's water. Water doesn't stick around for 6 months. Okay? So we need to find a way to make something maintainable, make a lifestyle maintainable. Because we need to talk about what our hierarchy of importance is. The number one thing for progress in fat loss and maintaining fat loss, it's not some specialized diet. It's not some secret training program. There are no secrets. The number one thing, numero uno, hard work and consistency. That's it. That's it. Okay? Most people's problems, they can't be consistent, right? They try to, quote unquote, eat clean, which if you haven't read my articles or my videos, you may not know why I'm doing the clean in quotations. It's because there is no objective definition of clean eating, and every person you talk to is a different thing, and it doesn't exist. Now that I've probably made half of you upset because I've challenged your beliefs about nutrition, I want to point out that the reason I'm not a fan of eating clean or paleo or any kind of quote-unquote diet that tells you you can't have certain foods is because it is not maintainable. In my experience, working with over 1,000 clients in the last decade, it is not maintainable. I used to tell people, eat these foods, not these foods. It doesn't work. Sure, they'll lose weight. Sure, they lose 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds. They put it all back on. My assistant, Sohee Lee, and my co-host for Physique Science Radio, had a great quote. She said, the diet you're on, if you cannot see yourself on that diet 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, you have to rethink what you're doing because it is going to fail. You are going to rebound because if it's not maintainable, the data says you're going to rebound. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff, but the fat loss data out there is extraordinarily grim in terms of losing fat. In fact, a recent meta-analysis of dieting studies showed that dieting for sustained weight loss, not dieting to lose a little bit, but dieting for sustained weight loss for 5-10 years, was so ineffective that it cannot be recommended as a weight loss intervention. I'm going to let that sit with you for a minute. They're saying dieting doesn't work. It's not that dieting doesn't work. It's the way that most people diet sets them up for weight regain. Okay? We have to set ourselves up for success. We have to set ourselves up for something that is sustainable, that is maintainable. Okay? That is why I prefer flexible dieting. Alright? And I've talked about this a lot. Flexible dieting is just a system of tracking your macronutrient intake and saying, hey, you know what, if I want a little bit of ice cream, I can have a little bit of ice cream. And people try to blow this out of proportion and start fights between flexible dieting and clean eating and all this sort of nonsense. Let me be perfectly clear. Flexible dieting and clean eating are not mutually exclusive. Okay? You can choose to eat quote-unquote clean sources of food if you wish, as long as you track your macronutrient intake. What it says, however, is that if you just can't stand it anymore, if you got to have some ice cream, then you account for it in your macronutrient intake. It's not a quote-unquote cheat making you feel guilty and go off the deep end, okay? It is a sustainable way of dieting, at least more so sustainable than any other one I've found, okay? So, people will tell me, Layne, you can't tell me that a bowl of ice cream, those macros are somehow just as good as a sweet potato or whatever. That is not the point. No, I'm not trying to argue that. Are there certain benefits to certain foods versus others? Yes, probably. But they pale. They absolutely pale in comparison to being consistent with a diet. What does that come into? Because on our hierarchy of what's important, if consistency is the number one thing, then there are other things below that that are still important, that still make a difference. But we can't let something down here, our adherence to something down here, sabotage what's up here. So what I mean by that is ice cream the best thing you could possibly do? Well, maybe not. But if having that one bowl of ice cream prevents you from going off the deep end, or binging, or just saying, going into the what the hell effect, as Corey Probst refers to it, where you just go a little bit into a bad food and say, what the hell, I'm off my diet, I might as well have whatever I want. Well, the reality is, do you really think that a little bit of ice cream, or a slice of pizza, or something like that, completely bags your diet? Of course not. But many people get into this what the hell mindset anyway, where they have a little bit off their diet and they just go off the deep end. And that does negatively impact you. Okay, so that's why we need something sustainable. And you need to go slow. The slower you lose body fat, the more likely you are to keep it off. Okay, if you have 100 pounds of fat to lose, be prepared for that to take over a year or two. Okay? It does not matter how slowly you go so long as you keep going. Okay? If you do what you need to do today, and you do what you need to do tomorrow, eventually you will get there. Okay? And then once you are at your goal, slowly adding calories back in. If you just go immediately back to the way you were eating before, you're going to rebound. That's what the data says. It says you're going to overshoot your body fat. Do not fall into the trap of ultra-restrictive dieting with crash dieting. It is a recipe for disaster. It does not work. It works in the short term. It does not work in the long term. No one can stick to 1,000 calories a day for the rest of their life. And if they can, I would argue it's not living. Don't crash diet. Go slow. Don't be ultra-restrictive. Be a moderate. Still enjoy the foods you like to have, but in controlled moderation. Account for them in your protein, carb, and fat intake. That's it, guys. I hope this video was helpful for you all, and I hope it helped you think about dieting from a different perspective. Take care.